Well, hello, everyone. My name is Tracy Young, OG Tutor Extraordinaire, founder of theliteracykeys.com, and most importantly, mom of a dyslexic daughter. Welcome to my podcast, where you'll discover ways to unlock your child's reading potential. I'll share tips, strategies, and war stories that have happened along the way, because everyone deserves to be able to read. So let's get started. Have you ever had a sinking feeling that something just wasn't right, but you can't put your finger on it? You're sitting with your child, you're watching them struggle to read or do their homework, and you just know that something is off. So you ask the school to evaluate. After all, they're the experts, and they come back and say, everything's normal. In fact, they then tell you to lower your expectations. It's a frustrating place to be. So what if I told you there's a powerful tool that you can ask for that will provide you with a second opinion? Well, hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about that second opinion. It's called the Independent Educational Evaluation, or IEE for short. I've even heard it referred to as an IEE evaluation, which is technically incorrect since you're repeating the word evaluation twice, but let's not squabble. So, an IEE is a powerful tool that not many parents are aware of. In fact, it can help you level the playing field. We'll cover what an IEE is, when you can ask your public school to pay for one, and why it's so important. So let's start with the basics. What exactly is an independent educational evaluation? It's an evaluation of your child conducted by a qualified professional who is not employed by the school district. And that is really important because an IEE provides a level of objectivity that doesn't always happen with a school's evaluation. Additionally, you can request a comprehensive evaluation to be performed by a neuropsychologist or someone trained in reading difficulties or dyslexia specifically. So I like to think of the IEE as a second opinion, especially when you don't agree with the school or the outcome of the initial CSE meeting to determine eligibility. CSE stands for Committee on Special Education. Right? Everyone at school uses acronyms. Let's step back for a second and see if this situation sounds familiar. You as a parent contacted the school and initiated an evaluation of your child. Perfect. From there, the school has 60 days to conduct several assessments to determine if your child has a learning disability and do they require special education services to access a free and public education. This seems pretty straightforward so far, right? Now let me pull back the curtain and share some facts. Schools do not like to be an outlier. This means they don't want to be above the state or national average for the percentage of students in special education. Why, you may ask? There are several reasons. First, because this may indicate that the curriculum being used by the school is ineffective. From the state's perspective, if too many kids are in special education, it could be seen as a red flag that learning is not occurring as it should be. Another reason that schools may want to keep the percentage of students in special education low is that the services are expensive. So often, they will be reserved for students with visible disabilities. And you need to know that dyslexia is not that visible. So that's a starting point that you as a parent need to understand when you're asking the school for an evaluation. Now, that's not to imply that every single school is doing this, but you kind of need to know that this might be a possibility at your child's school. But wouldn't the issue show up in the testing that is done, you might ask? Well, not exactly. So first of all, which tests are being administered? Let me make an analogy. Let's say your child broke his leg. You expect the doctor to use an X-ray to see if the bone is broken. So, what if the doctor gave your child a vision test and then declared that everything is fine? You need to understand the evaluations that are being administered and what each one tests for. The tests need to correspond to the suspected disability, which they might not, for a whole lot of reasons. I'd like to tell parents, caveat emptor, which is Latin for buyer beware. Now let's talk about another possible scenario. The evaluations were administered and your child is described as perfectly normal. Great from the school's perspective. However, you need to do some digging, and let me explain why. Someone once described averages as, my head is too hot, my feet are too cold, but on average, I'm fine. Averages can hide a lot of things. So the first question that you need to ask when they talk about testing is about the subtest results. Are they separated out? How did your child score on each subtest? You see, lumping subtest results together may hide weaknesses. So if you read the school's evaluation and think, this doesn't sound like my child, or I feel like they missed something, they might not have captured the full story. So what are your options? Well, you can pursue a private evaluation. That's one option. Or you can pursue an IEE. Let's start with the IEE. It gives you, the parent, a chance to have an outside expert evaluate your child. This independent evaluator will conduct their own set of tests, observe your child, and provide a comprehensive report from a neutral standpoint. That sounds expensive, you might be thinking. What many parents do not realize is that you have the right to request that your public school district pay for the IEE in one specific circumstance, when you disagree with the results of the evaluation that the school conducted and state it in the initial CSE meeting that you disagree with the school's evaluation. In a nutshell, the process usually works like this. Number one, the school completes their evaluation and gives you the report, usually at a CSE meeting. I'll mention as a side note that you want to request in writing a copy of the report 3 days prior to the meeting, so that you're not blindsided and spend all the time looking at the report when you're supposed to be discussing it in the meeting. 2, in the meeting, if you disagree with the findings, maybe you don't believe they tested for the right things, or you feel the conclusions are inaccurate, you need to state your disagreement and ask that it be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. 3, the school needs to issue in writing a prior written notice, PWN, stating the disagreement. And then 4, you need to request in writing a publicly funded IEE. A simple letter or email to the special education director will suffice. And I recommend you copy the principal on it. You don't even need to give a detailed explanation of why you disagree. Simply state that you disagree. Okay, so then what happens? When the school receives your request, they only have 2 choices. First, they can agree to pay for the IEE without unnecessary delay, or second, they can file for a due process hearing to prove that their own evaluation was appropriate. Honestly, a due process hearing will run about $50,000 versus a fraction of that cost for an IEE. Most schools agree to the IEE. The school can provide you with the list of possible practitioners to conduct the IEE, the corresponding credentials of that practitioner, and the cost range. But you need to know this. You're not required to choose someone from a list they provide, and this is really important. You can find a neuropsychologist in your area that specializes in reading issues and use that one. You might want to think twice before using anyone that the school recommends. I say this because the person may not exactly be completely objective, especially if the school is sending them business. The practitioner may not want to bite the hand that feeds them. I'm not saying that this occurs all the time, but just keep it in the back of your mind. There's one drawback to an IEE, and that's timing. When the school agrees to pay, the process can take some time. You need to be thinking in months, not weeks. You have to wait for the prior written notice to be provided to you. Then you need to request the IEE. You need to wait for the school's approval. You need to find an evaluator who meets the criteria and has availability. The school needs to issue a purchase order, and only then can you schedule the testing. Oh, and one last thing. A lot of evaluators are scheduling 3 to 6 months out, and that's regardless of whether it's private evaluation or an IEE. So basically, from the moment you request an IEE, you could be looking at 9 months for your child to be evaluated. Then it'll take a few more weeks to issue the report, and only then can the CSE meeting be reconvened for your child. So all said and done, the process, you could be looking at a year. There is a somewhat shorter timeline, but it's a lot more expensive. If you opt to pay for a private evaluation yourself, which basically you can do at any time, the process will be faster. You can find and hire the evaluator immediately, schedule the evaluation, but remember, it still might take 3 months. This, unfortunately, is one of the reasons that dyslexia is sometimes called a rich person's disability. An evaluation can cost between $2,000 and $10,000. It's a wide range, and it depends upon what the rates are in your area. If you're in an urban environment, you're going to be closer to the $10,000 range. There is one bright spot, and if you live in New York, a law was recently passed requiring the insurance companies to cover the cost and evaluation of a reading disability evaluations. So you can go the private route and have it covered by medical insurance. Okay, so let's recap. An IEE is a second opinion regarding your child's educational needs. You, as a parent, have the right to ask the school to pay for one if you disagree with their evaluation in the initial CSE meeting. An IEE is a powerful tool for getting a clear, comprehensive picture of your child's learning profile, and it can provide you with the expert evidence you need to advocate effectively for your child. So if your gut is telling you that something in the school's report isn't right, I encourage you to listen to it. You are the expert on your child. An independent educational evaluation can be the key that unlocks the right support and sets your child on the path to success. I hope this information was helpful. Please subscribe to the podcast and write a review. I understand the reviews are a pain in the neck, but a review is essential to help people find this podcast. So go ahead, write a review. Pretty please. Well, that's it for this week. Thank you and have a fabulous time until we speak again. Ciao. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to the Literacy Keys podcast. Follow us on social media, and most importantly, tell a friend. See you next week.